The colony on Arcturus 7 died in 15 minutes. Commander Jake Morrison watched the feed from his command station aboard the warship Defender, his knuckles white against the console. 300,000 civilians. Gone. The Zalthari assault ships had appeared without warning, their plasma cannons reducing the settlement to molten slag before the planetary defense grid could even power up. This was the 5th human colony in 2 weeks. Morrison's jaw clenched as the last transmission cut to static. A child's scream, then nothing. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines and the steady beep of sensors tracking the alien fleet as it jumped back into dark space. "Sir, we have confirmed signatures," Lieutenant Amy Collins said from the tactical station, her voice tight. "Same ships that hit New Portland and Shepherd's Landing. How many colonies does that make across all sectors?" Morrison asked. 12, sir. 12 in 30 days. Collins pulled up the star map, red markers spreading like a disease across human space. Population loss estimated at 4.2 million. 4.2 million people. Men, women, children. Families sitting down to dinner. Kids playing in parks. Farmers tending crops under alien suns. All of them vaporized because humanity had dared to reach for the stars. Morrison stood, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow across the tactical display. He had fought in the border wars, had seen combat that would break most people. But this was different. This was extermination. "Get me a direct line to Fleet Admiral Patterson," he ordered. Priority Alpha. The communications officer worked quickly, and within seconds, the weathered face of Admiral Richard Patterson appeared on the main screen. The old man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past month. "Morrison, I saw the feed from Arcturus 7. Sir, we need to respond. Now, not with peacekeeping forces or diplomatic envoys. We need to hit them hard." Patterson's expression darkened. "The Zalthari have superior numbers, Commander. Their technology is decades ahead of ours. The Council wants to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Morrison's voice rose despite himself. "They're not interested in talking, Admiral. They're exterminating us colony by colony, and we're sitting here with our hands tied while millions die. I understand your frustration, but, with respect, sir, you don't understand. None of them do." Morrison leaned toward the screen. "These aliens think we're weak. They think because we've been peaceful for 50 years, because we talk before we fight, that we've forgotten how to wage war." Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then something shifted in his eyes, something cold and dangerous. "What are you suggesting, Commander?" Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I'm suggesting we remind the galaxy why humanity climbed to the top of the food chain on Earth. I'm suggesting we show them what happens when you wake the dragons." 48 hours later, Morrison stood in the war room at Fleet Command on Luna Base, surrounded by the best military minds humanity had to offer. The room buzzed with tension as holographic displays showed Zalthari fleet movements across a dozen sectors. Captain Lisa Bennett from Naval Intelligence stepped forward, her tablet glowing with classified data. "We've been tracking their pattern. The Zalthari hit agricultural colonies first, then mining operations. They're trying to starve us out and cripple our resource chains before moving on core worlds." "How long until they reach Earth?" asked Commander Derek Hayes, his face grim. 6 months, maybe less if they accelerate their campaign," Bennett replied. Admiral Patterson stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding silence. "We've intercepted their communications. They call us the soft species. They believe our centuries of peace have made us vulnerable. They think we're easy prey." Morrison felt anger surge through his veins. Easy prey. Humanity had spent 200 years building a peaceful civilization among the stars, and now these aliens mistook kindness for weakness. "What do we know about their home world?" Morrison asked. Bennett brought up a new display. "Zalthara Prime, located in the Kepler system, approximately 200 light-years from Sol. Population estimated at 12 billion. Their military is centralized, with most of their fleet operating from 3 major shipyards in orbit. Defenses, extensive. Energy shields, automated weapon platforms, and a standing fleet of approximately 800 warships. They've never been invaded. Their empire has conquered 14 species over the past millennium without ever fighting on their own soil. Morrison studied the tactical readouts, his mind racing through possibilities. The Zalthari had numbers and technology, but they had something else too: arrogance. They had never faced an enemy willing to bring the fight to their doorstep. "We can't match them ship for ship," Patterson said. "Even if we mobilized every vessel in the fleet, we'd be outnumbered 3-1. "Then we don't fight fair," Morrison replied. "They expect us to defend, to wait for them to come to us. We do the opposite. We take the fight to them." "A strike on their home world?" Commander Hayes looked skeptical. "That's suicide. Only if we play by their rules," Morrison countered. He manipulated the holographic display, highlighting key points around Zalthara Prime. They've never been invaded, which means their defensive posture is oriented outward. Their shipyards, their fleet, everything is positioned to project power, not protect their core. Bennett caught on quickly. You want to slip past their perimeter, not slip. Punch through, hard and fast. Morrison's fingers danced across the display, pulling up Earth's military history archives. "We're going to use something the Zalthari have never encountered. Human tactics from the old wars. Blitzkrieg, shock, and awe. Total war." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Patterson leaned forward. "You're talking about committing everything we have to a single strike. If we fail, Earth is defenseless. If we don't act, Earth dies anyway," Morrison shot back. "But slowly, colony by colony, while we watch. At least this way, we go down fighting. And maybe, just maybe, we take them with us. What would you need?" Morrison had been planning this since Arcturus 7. "Every carrier we have, every destroyer, every frigate. I want the experimental ships too, the ones R&D has been keeping secret. The stealth corvettes, the heavy bombardment cruisers, all of it. We load every ship with the most devastating weapons in our arsenal." "The kinetic penetrators?" Bennett asked quietly. Morrison nodded. "Among other things. We've spent 50 years developing weapons we hoped we'd never use. Fusion warheads, antimatter torpedoes, quantum destabilizers. The kind of weapons that make Geneva Conventions look quaint. Those are banned by interstellar treaty," Hayes protested. "The Zalthari don't care about treaties," Morrison said coldly. "They vaporized 4 million civilians. They're trying to exterminate our species. This isn't about honor anymore. This is about survival." Patterson studied Morrison for a long moment, then turned to the other officers. "Everyone out except Commander Morrison and Captain Bennett." The room cleared quickly. When they were alone, Patterson poured 3 glasses of whiskey from a bottle he kept in his desk. He handed one to each of them. "What you're proposing is the most dangerous military operation in human history," the Admiral said. "If word gets out before we're ready, the Zalthari will fortify their defenses, and we'll lose any chance of success."
"I know, sir. You're also asking me to commit war crimes, to use weapons that violate every principle we've built our civilization on."
"I'm asking you to save our species," Morrison replied. "Whatever it takes." Patterson downed his whiskey in one gulp. "The Council will never approve this. Then we don't tell them until it's done," Bennett said quietly. Both men looked at her. She met their gazes steadily. "Sir, I lost my sister on New Portland. My nieces, they were 8 and 10 years old. If there's a chance to make the Zalthari pay for what they've done, I'll take that chance. Consequences be damned." Patterson set his glass down with a sharp click. "How long do you need to prepare?" 3 weeks, Morrison said. "Give me 3 weeks, and I'll give you a fleet that will burn Zalthara Prime to ash." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then you'd better get started, Commander. Because in 3 weeks, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you attack humanity. We're going to show them the dragons." The shipyards above Mars worked around the clock. Morrison watched from the observation deck as hundreds of vessels underwent rapid retrofitting. Engineers swarmed over hull plating, installing weapon systems that had existed only in classified files. The experimental stealth corvettes, sleek and deadly, received quantum dampeners that would make them nearly invisible to Zalthari sensors. Captain Bennett approached, her data pad glowing with status reports. "We've assembled 240 ships, not as many as I'd hoped, but every single one is carrying enough firepower to crack a moon." Crew morale? Through the roof. Word has spread about the mission, even though it's classified. Every sailor in the fleet wants to be part of this. We've had 5,000 volunteers for every available position. Morrison wasn't surprised. The footage from the colony attacks had been leaked to the public, despite government attempts at containment. Humanity had watched their children die on a dozen worlds. Now they wanted blood. What about the special weapons? Bennett's expression grew darker. "Loaded and ready. The antimatter warheads alone could sterilize their entire planet. The kinetic penetrators will punch through their shields like tissue paper, and the quantum destabilizers will tear their shipyards apart at the molecular level." Morrison felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, but close. These weapons represented humanity's darkest innovations, born from centuries of warfare on Earth. They had promised themselves they would never use such things again after achieving interstellar travel. But the Zalthari had changed the equation. Any word from intelligence? "The Zalthari just hit 2 more colonies. Meridian 4 and New Sydney. They're getting bolder, sir. Their fleet is moving closer to the core systems." "Good," Morrison said coldly. "Let them come deeper. Let them think they're winning. It'll make the reversal that much sweeter." Over the next 2 weeks, the fleet gathered in secret at a staging point beyond Pluto's orbit. Morrison had divided the armada into 3 strike groups. Alpha Group would hit the Zalthari shipyards directly. Beta Group would engage their defensive fleet. Gamma Group, the smallest but most lethal, had a single mission: deliver the planet-killer weapons to Zalfara Prime itself. Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned warship Vengeance, watching the assembled fleet through the viewport. 240 ships, each one crewed by volunteers who knew this might be a one-way trip. They were fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, all willing to die to protect what remained of humanity. Lieutenant Collins approached from the weapons station. "Sir, all ships report ready. Weapons armed. Drives charged. We're good to go. Patch me through to the fleet, all channels." A moment later, Morrison's face appeared on every screen across every ship. Tens of thousands of crew members looked up from their stations to listen. "3 weeks ago we watched Arcturus 7 burn," Morrison began, his voice steady. "We watched as the Zalthari slaughtered everyone we loved, everyone we swore to protect. They think we're weak. They think our peace has made us soft." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They're wrong. Humanity didn't crawl out of caves and conquer a death world by being soft. We didn't split the atom, didn't reach for the stars, didn't build civilizations across 100 worlds by being weak. We did it by being the most adaptable, most determined, most dangerous species our planet ever produced." Morrison's voice grew harder, colder. "For 200 years, we chose peace. We chose diplomacy and cooperation. We chose to be better than we were. But the Zalthari have reminded us of an old truth. Peace is a luxury that only the strong can afford. And when someone threatens our families, our children, our very existence, we remember what we really are." He let the silence stretch for a heartbeat. "We are predators. We are survivors. We are the species that turned warfare into an art form, that built weapons capable of ending worlds. For millennia we fought each other because we had no other enemies. Now the Zalthari have given us a target." Morrison's eyes blazed with cold fury. In 12 hours, we jump to the Kepler system. We're going to hit Zalthara Prime with everything we have. We're going to burn their shipyards, shatter their fleet, and teach them the most important lesson in the galaxy. You don't attack humanity. You don't slaughter our children. You don't wake the dragons. Across the fleet, thousands of voices began to chant. It started on the Vengeance, spread to the destroyer Dakota, jumped to the carrier Enterprise, and rippled through every ship until the entire armada echoed with one word. Dragons. 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 Morrison let them chant. Let them build their fury. These men and women were about to attempt the impossible. They deserved this moment. When the chanting finally subsided, he spoke again, quieter now but no less intense. The Zalthari have ruled this region of space for 1,000 years. They've conquered 14 species. They've never lost a war, never been invaded, never faced an enemy willing to bring total destruction to their doorstep. Morrison smiled, and it was the smile of an apex predator. That ends today. Today, they learn what happens when you attack Earth. Today, they learn fear. Today, we show the entire galaxy who we really are. He raised his fist. For the fallen colonies, for the 4 million dead, for every man, woman, and child who died screaming as their homes burned. We go to war. The fleet erupted in cheers, but Morrison had already turned to his crew. Battle stations. All hands to combat readiness. Prepare for jump in T-12 hours. The Vengeance hummed with energy as its crew scrambled to their positions. Around them, 239 other ships did the same. Weapons charged. Shields powered up. Jump drives spun to life. The dragons were awake. And they were hungry for vengeance. The Zalthari sensor station orbiting the outer rim of their system detected the anomaly first. A distortion in space, massive and growing. The technician on duty, a young Zalthari named Krell, stared at his display in confusion. Nothing that large should be able to jump so close to their home world. The gravitational interference alone should have made it impossible. He reached for the communications panel to report the anomaly. He never completed the action. 240 human warships materialized in a perfect attack formation, their weapons already hot. The sensor station vaporized in the first salvo, its debris scattering across the void like metallic snow. Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair as space erupted around them. All ships, weapons free. Execute attack pattern Ragnarok. The fleet split into its 3 designated groups with brutal efficiency. Alpha Group, led by the carrier Enterprise under Captain Ryan Foster, screamed toward the massive shipyards that ringed Zalthara Prime. Antimatter warheads launched by the dozens, each one capable of annihilating a small city. The Zalthari orbital defenses came online too slowly. The automated weapon platforms had been programmed to expect attacks from known threat vectors, following the standard patterns of species they had conquered before. They weren't prepared for human unpredictability. Alpha Group stealth corvettes, invisible to Zalthari sensors, slipped past the defensive grid and planted quantum destabilizers directly on the shipyard's main support structures. The devices activated simultaneously, causing molecular bonds to simply stop working. The largest shipyard, a construction platform the size of a small moon, began tearing itself apart as its own mass became its enemy. Beta Group engaged the Zalthari home fleet head-on. The aliens had 800 warships, but they had grown complacent after centuries of easy victories. Their formations were textbook, their movements predictable. Morrison watched as Commander Karen Martinez aboard the destroyer Fury executed a flanking maneuver that should have been impossible, using the gravity well of Zalthara Prime's largest moon to slingshot her squadron into the enemy's rear guard. The Zalthari ships exploded in brilliant flashes as human kinetic penetrators punched through their shields. The weapons were simple, elegant, and devastating. Tungsten rods accelerated to 90% light speed, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a nuclear explosion. Shields designed to deflect energy weapons were useless against solid mass moving at relativistic speeds. "Sir, Zalthari Command is broadcasting on all frequencies," Lieutenant Collins reported. "They're demanding we cease fire and withdraw." "Ignore them," Morrison ordered coldly. "Gamma Group, you are clear to engage." Gamma Group consisted of 30 ships, each one carrying planet-killer ordnance. They dove toward Zalthara Prime like avenging angels, their hulls painted with the names of every destroyed human colony. New Portland, Shepherd's Landing. Arcturus 7, Meridian 4. 12 names representing 4 million dead. The Zalthari planetary defense grid opened up with everything it had. Energy beams capable of vaporizing asteroids reached out toward the incoming human ships. The destroyer Liberty took a direct hit, its shields failing instantly. The ship broke apart, but not before launching its payload. A dozen antimatter warheads raced toward the planet's surface. "They're targeting population centers," Captain Bennett called from Tactical. "Major cities, industrial zones." "Sir, there are civilians down there." Morrison's jaw tightened. He thought of the children on Arcturus 7. The families on New Portland. They made their choice when they slaughtered our colonies. Continue the attack. The first warhead struck near the Zalthari capital city. The antimatter annihilation released more energy in 3 seconds than humanity had used in the entire 20th century. A mushroom cloud rose 30 kilometers into the atmosphere, visible from orbit as a pillar of fire and destruction. 11 more warheads struck across the planet. Continents burned. Oceans boiled. The Zalthari home world, unconquered for 1,000 years, was dying. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Zalthari Central Authority," Collins said, her voice shaking. "They're begging us to stop. They're offering unconditional surrender." Morrison stood, walking to the viewport to watch Zalthara Prime burn. Part of him wanted to accept. Part of him remembered the principles humanity had built its civilization on. Mercy, compassion, the belief that all sentient life had value. Then he remembered the feed from Arcturus 7, the child's scream cutting to static. "Tell them we'll consider their surrender," Morrison said quietly. "After we finish what they started." The Zalthari fleet was in full retreat now, their formations shattered. Human ships pursued relentlessly, picking off stragglers with precise weapons fire. The 3 massive shipyards were gone, replaced by expanding clouds of debris. And on the planet below, fires raged across 3 continents. "Sir, Alpha Group reports all objectives secured." Captain Foster's voice crackled over the comm. "Enemy shipyards are destroyed. We estimate 90% of their naval construction capability is gone." "Beta Group here," Commander Martinez added. "Enemy fleet is broken. They're running for deep space. Should we pursue?" Morrison considered. They had achieved their objectives. The Zalthari military was crippled, their homeworld devastated. Continuing the attack would just be slaughter. But they had slaughtered humanity's colonies without hesitation. Negative Beta Group. "Let them run. Let them tell the galaxy what happened here." Morrison turned to Collins. "Open a channel. Broadcast to every ship in the Zalthari fleet, every station, every colony. I want the entire Empire to hear this." When the channel opened, Morrison spoke with cold finality. "You attacked our colonies. You killed our people. You thought we were weak. You thought our peace made us prey." He paused. "You were wrong. This is what happens when you wait the dragons. Remember this day. Remember the price of attacking humanity." He nodded to Collins, who cut the transmission. "All ships, begin withdrawal. Set course for Sol system." As the human fleet turned away from the burning world, Morrison allowed himself one moment of emotion. Not triumph, not satisfaction. just bone-deep weariness, and the knowledge that humanity had crossed a line they could never uncross. The fleet limped back to Sol System 3 days later. They had lost 42 ships and nearly 30,000 crew members. The victory had cost them dearly, but it had cost the Zalthari everything. Morrison stood before the Council of United Earth, facing the representatives of every nation and colony world that remained. The chamber was packed, and the mood was tense. Some counselors looked at him like a hero. Others looked at him like a war criminal. Counselor Victoria Green of the European Alliance spoke first, her voice sharp. "Commander Morrison, you committed an act of genocide. You used weapons banned by interstellar law. You destroyed an entire civilization without authorization from this council." "I saved our species," Morrison replied evenly. "The Zalthari weren't interested in negotiations. They were systematically exterminating us. We had to make them stop." "By becoming monsters ourselves?" Green shot back. "By abandoning every principle we've built our society on." "By surviving," Captain Bennett interjected from where she stood beside Morrison. "With respect, Counselor, the principles you're defending only matter if we're alive to uphold them. The Zalthari killed 4 million of our people. They would have killed billions more if we hadn't acted." Admiral Patterson stepped forward, his uniform bearing the weight of decades of service. "The Council needs to understand the strategic situation. We sent a message not just to the Zalthari but to every species in this region of space. We showed them that humanity will not be victims, that we have the capability and the will to defend ourselves with overwhelming force." "And what happens next?" Counselor Henry Park asked. "Do we become conquerors now? Do we terrorize the galaxy the way the Zalthari did?" Morrison shook his head. "No. We go back to what we were. Peaceful, diplomatic, cooperative. But now everyone knows the cost of attacking us. We're not prey anymore." The debate raged for hours. Some counselors demanded Morrison's arrest. Others wanted him promoted. The vote, when it finally came, was split almost evenly. In the end, Admiral Patterson's testimony about the military necessity of the operation carried the day. Morrison and his crew were officially reprimanded, but no charges were filed. As Morrison left the chamber, Captain Bennett fell into step beside him. "That could have gone worse. Could have gone better, too," Morrison replied. "How's the crew handling everything?" "Mixed feelings. Pride in what we accomplished. Guilt over how we did it. Lieutenant Collins requested a transfer to non-combat duty. Says she can't stop seeing the planet burning." Morrison nodded slowly. He understood that feeling. "Any word from the Zalthari?" "Their remaining government contacted us yesterday. They're offering formal surrender terms. Complete cessation of hostilities, reparations for the colonies they destroyed, and they're willing to submit to independent oversight of their military. Smart of them. They don't have much choice. We left them with maybe 100 functioning warships, and their homeworld is still dealing with ecological collapse from the bombardment. They'll be rebuilding for generations." Morrison stopped walking, looking out through the large windows at Earth below. The blue marble that had birthed humanity, that had sent them out to the stars with hopes of peace and prosperity. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked quietly. Bennett was silent for a long moment. "I think we did the necessary thing. Whether that's the same as the right thing, I don't know. My sister's children are dead either way. But maybe other children get to live because we showed the galaxy that humans can't be hunted to extinction." Over the following months, the ripple effects of the Battle of Zalthara Prime spread across known space. 3 species that had been planning attacks on human colonies immediately withdrew their forces and requested diplomatic relations instead. The Virexi Collective, one of the major powers in the region, reached out to propose a mutual defense treaty. Humanity's reputation changed overnight. No longer were they seen as the peaceful newcomers, the naive species playing at civilization. Now they were respected, feared, even. The dragons were no longer sleeping. Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the newly formed Rapid Response Fleet, a permanent military force designed to protect human colonies from future threats. He accepted the position with mixed feelings, knowing that his actions at South Ara Prime had changed not just his life, but the entire trajectory of human civilization. 6 months after the battle, Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new flagship Resolution, looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Collins had returned to active duty, having worked through her trauma with counseling. Captain Bennett was now Commodore Bennett, leading the Second Fleet. And Admiral Patterson had retired, satisfied that humanity's defense was in capable hands. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the Zalthari ambassador," Collins reported. "They want to hold a memorial service for the fallen, both theirs and ours." Morrison turned, surprised. "A joint memorial?" "Yes, sir. They're saying it's time to honor the dead and move forward. They're proposing it be held on neutral ground, at the colony site of Arcturus 7. Morrison felt something twist in his chest. Arcturus 7, where this had all started, where 300,000 humans had died in 15 minutes. The Zalthari wanted to hold a memorial there. "Tell them we accept," he said quietly. "It's time we all tried to heal." As Collins relayed the message, Morrison returned his gaze to the stars. Humanity had shown the galaxy its teeth, had proven it could be just as dangerous as any species that threatened it. But maybe now they could show something else, the ability to forgive, to move beyond hatred, to build something better from the ashes of war. The dragons were awake, but they didn't have to be monsters. They could choose to be guardians instead. Morrison smiled slightly, thinking of all the human colonies spreading across the stars, protected now by the knowledge that humanity would defend its own with absolute ferocity when necessary. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Attack human colonies if you want, but know that you'll answer to the dragons, and the dragons never forget.